Hey everyone, Carmel Kemp here. And this week on Creating Life Consciously, we have an amazing guest for you, and I'm super excited and thrilled to dive into this. Dr. Lisa Thompson is a best-selling author, speaker, Galactic Ambassador, an Intuitive Transformational Coach specializing in human design and past life regression. She supports and empowers women to intentionally design their best life by living from their yes so they can embrace self-love, trust their intuition, and gracefully move forward through their fears to take inspired action to live a life they love. She is an evolutionary biologist who understands the embodiment of the ancient DNA within humans and guides them in the intergalactical realm. Lisa is the best-selling author of Connection to the Cosmos, Remembering Your Galactic Heritage and Embracing Your Oneness. Sacred Soul Love, Manifesting True Love and Happiness by Revealing and Healing Blockages and Limitations, and Sacred Soul Spaces, Designing Your Personal Oasis. Lisa has a weekly podcast called Connection to the Cosmos with Dr. Lisa Thompson, where she has out-of-this-world conversations with extraordinary people. She has created 8 oracle decks in designs, intentional jewelry inspired by her passion of travel and nature. She loves teaching online classes and leads retreats in her home state of Hawaii. She also leads night sky watch UFO tours on the Big Island of Hawaii. Well, welcome, Lisa. My goodness. We have a lot to talk about.
So much.
Amazing. So much that we can dive into here. So why don't we just start by sort of, what kind of transformation of your own did you go through to bring you to where you are right now?
Oh, wow. About 8 years ago, I was in a toxic marriage. I was living in Olympia, Washington. I had my interior design and home staging company. And in these last 8 years, I have had transformation in all areas of my life. So I left that toxic marriage. And I had a previous one to that as well. So 2 ex-husbands that, were not supportive, not loving and caring. And so I realized I was the common denominator there, and I needed to do some self-work on my self-love and worthiness. So when I really dove deep into that, I had some major healing, and I was able to meet and marry the love of my life, my third husband, Skip. But then also I had this company. It was amazing. However, it wasn't feeding my soul anymore. And I realized I needed to go in a direction that was more along my spiritual path. I had grown up in a very spiritual, metaphysical household, but I never thought about doing it as a business. And so I got a yes from my sacral inner authority in my human design to step forward and move into starting my company, Mystic Manta. And I met you in my first modality that I got trained in. We were with Denise Lynn doing our advanced past life regression certification. And so that was my step into this world of speaking out and being public about my spirituality rather than just keeping it to myself. And then 2 years ago, I moved to Hawaii. So I changed relationships, I changed careers, and I changed locations.
Yeah, I know all about that.
It's been a journey, right?
Absolutely, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about designing your own personal oasis. And what is that for you, and how does that manifest out in the world?
Yeah. So that was kind of my entryway into really being in the spiritual world and thinking about how we are creating environment around us. Environment to me, it's physical. It's like beautifying your space, but it's so much more than that. It's multidimensional. So it's the sights, the sounds, the smells, it's the people in your environment. It's what you're reading, what you're listening to. And so when you're really creating a sacred space that is supporting and nurturing you, it's thinking about these different elements where, color affects us physiologically and psychologically. So what colors are in your space? What kind of visuals are in your space, in your artwork and in your decor? And then, again, what are you watching and reading? Because that really is penetrating into your subconscious mind and playing out what your environment really creates your reality. I love Dr. Bruce Lipton's work of the biology of belief. And so all of these different elements at these different levels, if you're conscious about creating that space, and again, whoever's in your life, then you are creating an environment that supports you, that you can then manifest your dreams.
Yeah, and the environment that we create, it's kind of twofold for me anyway. We create the environment which has an impact on the internal, right? External to internal, and internal, as within, so without, and the opposite apply. And that creation comes from within, right?
Yes.
And we could, sound has color.
Yes.
Blows some people's minds, so, color has sound, everything is vibration, everything is geometry, and it has a deep impact on our ability to touch on a different dimension that can expand beyond, the decor of a living room or,
right.
or something like that. And we can see then the inherent power that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everything is at the quantum level, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're really being aware and conscious of our thoughts, first and foremost, because that our internal sacred space really is where we start everything, from my understanding. And from there, then we can move out into other realms, other dimensions, and really create beautiful multidimensional space.
Absolutely. I just recently moved from Pisac to Kalika, and it was just largely due to the fact that the environment, not in my home necessarily, but, having a shared yard space with, people that live in 6 or 7 other houses. And it's fine. And I have no problem with that. The issue that I had was that my neighbor had 3 dogs that would sit outside my front door and bark constantly. And that reverberation, and I understand getting into a place of stillness no matter what is going on. And most of the time that's achievable for me, but I'm still in a body and I have still things to learn and to do. And I just realized that it really wasn't supportive of my work and of my own spiritual well-being. And so, I literally made the call to move, gave my notice, and I thought, you know what, I really would like to be somewhere else sooner than later. And my birthday was coming up in a few days, and they said, you know what, it wouldn't be great to find a house by my birthday. And I just, let it go and was in that happy place. And it literally was the day before, on my way to a little mini vacation here, where I stopped and saw the house and said, yep, take it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And so being in Olympia was great. We had the mountains, we had the water, but we also had 9 months of rain and clouds. And my husband would get seasonal depression. And so we needed to get him into the sun because it was affecting his mental health. And since we have been here, we live basically in the desert on our island. So it's sunny every day. And he is so much happier. I am too, but for him and his mental health, that environment that we're putting ourselves into is, it's everything.
It is, absolutely. I lived in Vancouver for 38 years. And so I learned how to embrace the rain. Yeah. But I will say, that I don't miss it raining as much as it did in Vancouver. Unfortunately, we're just coming out of the dry season here. It really hasn't rained for 6 months. It's parched. And when it does rain here, it rains mostly at night and then is beautiful and hot and sunny during the day. So I do understand that impact, and I think that, we can try to get to a place of, acceptance, of course, that it is what it is. And I learned how to accept the rain, but, it gets tedious after a while, day in, day out, And so creating the inner landscape is also, creating the outer landscape. And, we're dreaming right now anyway. So why not make it a good dream instead of the nightmare that, unfortunately, I created things that were probably not my best interest for a really long time. And that was just because it wasn't in my awareness or my understanding at that time.
Yeah. Same here. And I also realized that I needed to go through certain experiences to be able to actually have compassion and empathy for other people in a way that I didn't before I went through the really hard experiences. Right. And, whatever reason why I chose that as my soul contract to come into the lessons that I learned, but I did learn them and I gained the wisdom. And that's, ultimately what we're here to do is let's have some new experiences. Let's learn some lessons and have some fun too.
Of course, burn the karma, which is neither good or bad.
Right.
Have a sort of jaded understanding of what karma is, but if you want to call that what we need to burn in this lifetime and move past. And for me, I think that I found that when you can find the wisdom in an experience or what we might call a lesson, no matter how uncomfortable it may have been to go through, then we can change the perception and it doesn't have that hold over us as much as it did before, that attachment, that trigger. And, I like to say, when we can find the wisdom in something, then we can turn the pain to gain.
Yes, definitely. And those of us that have made those shifts, we are showing people you don't have to be stuck. And that's the thing, is that so many people do feel stuck. And I felt stuck for a time. But then I was able to get some help, and get myself out of that muck and mire. And my life has really become even more beautiful on the other side of all of that trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we have the willingness to come to an awareness that, we're stuck and this just isn't working for me anymore, then, we have to develop the courage to take action, right? I mean, it's the desire is there. Okay, I want to shift. I want to change, right? And then we develop the willingness and then the courage to take the action. And sometimes that means asking for help, and being willing to receive it.
Yes. Well, and that's most important. As you know, in the work that you do and the work that I do, people have to be willing to make that change because it's not going to work if they want to stay stuck.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Experience.
And it's not about necessarily fixing anything, right? Because I don't truly believe that we're broken. It's just, we're just a little stuck and something else hasn't come into our awareness yet. And, the collective consciousness is one, unfortunately, that is based in 3D, and 3D is fear-based, survival-based, time is linear.
Yes.
And so it does take a lot of courage. It's messy work, Yes. It's not, all glamorous and fun and easy, but it becomes, I guess, more palatable as you take the first step and then see that, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And the unknown isn't as scary as we've made it out to be.
Right. And I think that is probably, besides death, most people are afraid of the unknown. They have fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to stay in the comfort of discomfort sometimes because you don't know what's going to happen. But the more that I've practiced this throughout my life, changing careers, changing relationships, changing places that I live. Like all my world has changed multiple times throughout my life, not just that recent 8 years. And the more evidence that I have for myself that it's all going to be okay as I take those steps. And that's actually where learning what my human design inner authority was 8 years ago, that was such a transformational thing for me to know, because when I would get my answer, I would know, okay, that is actually from the depths of my soul. This isn't my logical brain trying to make something right when it's not right for me, which is what I would normally do. And so even just taking the very first step in that new direction, you're showing the universe like, hey, okay, I'm trusting this. And then the other steps will naturally fall into place. We're not necessarily meant to know the entire way of getting to the end destination, because it is about the journey as part of our experience.
Yeah, absolutely right. There's always, there's no other time other than here, right? The past is memory.
Right.
The future, including 5 minutes from now, a week from now, is only something that we can imagine. And imagination is a powerful, powerful tool if we can harness it and make it work for us, rather than it sort of, the carriage before the horse kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there is a deeper intelligence here where all of the answers are here.
They are.
We just want to get the hell out of the way.
Yes.
Right? and navigate that. And that's in large part, some of the messy part, because the mind and the mental body just wants to resist and resist and resist and say, no, this is what I know. And, when you realize that you really don't know shit, it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. Because as soon as you say, I know, without truly knowing, and a belief isn't a knowing, and you say, I know this, then no other possibility exists. How limiting is that? So bloody make sure that you know it.
Yes. Well, and that's the beauty of, like, the more that I have learned throughout my life, the more I know I don't know. The more, and even, really stepping into this role as a Galactic Ambassador, there is so much unknown out there, and I'm learning new things every single day, just working with them, working with my clients with them, and even just watching the night sky, so many new things.
It's amazing. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about, the Galactic Ambassador and how that, how you work with that, how that comes into play when you work with your clients.
Yeah. So I have been an experiencer my entire life of UFO and alien phenomena. And I had my first conscious memory of being taken onto a craft when I was 15. And it was a really beautiful experience. It wasn't scary at all. Like other people experienced some fear, but it was a different group. It wasn't the Greys. And I have a whole understanding about the Greys and their relationship with us. So that's a whole different story. But I was taken in 1988. And when I came back, I thought it was just a dream. And so I dismissed it as a dream. But several months later, I was reading a book that when I was reading it, my body had head to toe chills and tears were coming down my eye because I was getting validation. Like, okay, that was not a dream. But then I was also part of this spiritual school where we had people that were in the school that had been former like CIA and super high government. And my mom, when I realized it wasn't a dream, I told her about it. So she introduced me to a gentleman in the school who had been former very high government, knew about the different alien races that our government knows about and even interacts with. And so I told him my story. He didn't know the race, but he said, we don't know all of them. But he did validate that it was a real experience. So I was 16 at that time. And that was huge, getting that validation almost 35 years ago now, where I I can speak about that experience and all the other experiences that I have had since then with, okay, this was a real thing that happened to me. You can believe me or not, but it's impacted the way that I interact with my world, because I know we are not alone. Number one, I know there's way more than this earth human incarnation. And with the regression work that we learned how to do, I have experienced many parallel lives of being non-earth human. And so in that connection, 4 years ago, I met my Arcturian family, and they have deepened that connection as I've wanted to deepen it with them. And now I channel them through writing and vocal channeling. And growing up in a school that was a channel descended master, I never thought I would be the channeler. That was it was just weird at the time, even when I was attending the school as a teenager. But now I'm like, okay, I've had to work through some of that stigma, cultural stigma of being a channel, and just go with it. Like, yep, I channel. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us channel without even knowing it, whether it's through our creative expression with music or art or other endeavors. That actually is a form of channeling.
Absolutely. As you know, it's a big part of my work, but, channel, medium, and coming into play. There's so much that we don't know, and there's so much that is available to us to be able to tap into in order to create, create the life that we do want, create the thoughts that we do want, create and design our own personal oasis.
Yes. Well, and one of the things that my Arcturians are really, really reminding me of all the time, but also to my clients, is, okay, because all timelines exist simultaneously at the quantum level, what timeline do you want to be living in? And really focus your energy, your vision, your physiology, your emotions. Focus on that timeline that you want to create. Don't focus on the muck and mire and the fear-based stuff that's going on here in this current 3D reality. Because the more that you can really live it as if it's already happened, you are shifting into that timeline, and these other things don't even bother you. They kind of melt away. So I've been practicing that over the last year and a half.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, time isn't linear. It's only relative and linear in what we call through dimensional consciousness and physical reality. But as consciousness, when we can tap into those higher dimensions of consciousness, where time isn't linear, where fear and structure and survival isn't the main course of the day, then anything is possible.
It really is.
And it blows my mind. It still continues to blow my mind.
Yeah. And the more that we can be in a state of joy and coming from a place of love, we are in that higher vibration. And that is what we're going to be attracting into our life, what we're going to be pulling into our life. People, places, things, and events.
Absolutely, because we have to become the magnet. I got sort of stuck in a cycle of seriousness at the beginning of my journey, 10 years ago, because I saw it and felt that it was so sacred, so it must be serious. And that's not the case,
Yeah.
And we have to woo the divine, right? And really, the divine isn't lost. We're the ones that lost. The divine is everywhere.
Yeah.
But when we can woo the divine, it has no choice but to come. And how do we do that? Well, it's like any relationship. If you show up in misery and everything is negative, blah, 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 you're not going to get the person that you're hoping to, right? And so it works in the same way. It's almost like just woo, just shine,
Yeah.
shine, and wait to be found.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we're the ones that are lost. The divine's not lost. right? The universe isn't lost, it's there, right? But when we want to tap into those dimensions and that higher intelligence, the only way that it's workable is from a place of love and joy and play and dance and creativity. And it has no choice. And really, I mean, that's, getting into the divine feminine and Shakti. Everything is a play of Shakti. Right?
Yes. And I love that you brought up play, because that is something that they also are always talking about, be playful, be lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be so hard and dense. You don't have to be in that fear place, and follow your passion. And so that's what I've changed careers a few times, but I have followed my passion to certain extent. So my first passion was animals. So I got a PhD studying zoology, marine biology, evolutionary biology. So I know a lot about animals, but I finished that dream. It was like it was complete in a sense. And then I followed my passion of design and art, because I had almost quit grad school to go to art school. So I'm like, okay, what do I want to be really creative and really create beauty in my life. So I did that for 12 years. And now I'm following this passion of, really being on not just my spiritual journey, but also bringing my tribe along with me, because, I may only be one step ahead of someone, but I now know I have something to share with the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's super important. My dear guru would say, just do what you love, right? Do what you love. I spent so much time doing shit I didn't like. For the security, for the job, to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Right. And now I just do what I love, and it comes when I need it. I don't worry. You and I both are self-employed, right? We got to eat what we kill, so to speak. And that was a tough mentality in the beginning, because it was like, wait a minute. I don't have somebody that has agreed to give me a paycheck every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going to be coming in, when, or how much, or what have you. And that was an interesting navigation for sure.
Yeah.
And then being asked to just drop into deeper levels of trust and play. And when I do that, there's no issues. None.
Well, like you said, you found your place, right? Just by, okay, I want to have this before my birthday or by my birthday. And say my daughter, I had to take her to the emergency room 3 times in a 2-week period over the last few weeks. And even though we have insurance, there's still copay, and the first bill was like $462. And now I haven't received the other 2 bills, but I'm like, okay, I need bring some help in for that. And we get a check out of the blue for $900. It's not anything I was ever expecting. And it's like, okay, well, that's going to pay for the ER. Thank you, universe.
Totally. And that's what it works. But the thing is that we have to ask.
Yes.
We have to ask. This is so key. I mean, we can dance and play, and things will come. Things will come, definitely. But if there is a specific need, right, it's something that needs to be addressed, we have to ask. We have to ask and then go, thank you. Okay, here's the bill. Thanks for paying this bill. Whoever, whatever. Thank you.
Yes.
And it happens. And so it teaches the mind, not that the mind is here, it's everywhere, but it teaches the mind, and then the mind can kind of relax, right? Because the intellect needs proof.
It does.
It's this stubborn son of a bitch needs proof, right? And so, every time these things happen, I'm like, yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks. I got it. And then it becomes if I told you that I would be doing this 11 years ago, I'd have said, you're out of your bloody mind.
Right.
Out of your bloody mind. And I, in the beginning, especially with working with medicine, I resisted. I was like, no, not me. No, there's other guys out there that have been doing this for a long time, and their grandfathers and everybody else. No, not me. And I finally went, okay, fine, because it was relentless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like getting to a place of choicelessness. I'm doing this because I love it, but I'm also doing it because it's what's being asked of me.
Yeah. And I feel the same way about the galactic work to an extent, because it took, even though my experiences were real, I would share with my friends about my experiences and they thought I was crazy and like I was making it up. And like, okay, I'm not. So I felt like for years I had to just keep my mouth shut to be taken seriously in my other careers. And so it wasn't until I moved here to Hawaii where I was able to take off the rest of the masks and fully step in like, okay, fine, I'll do the work. And it's the more that I had stepped into my role, the more that's coming my way. It was like, it was the right time, but it was like they've been waiting to have this connection with me and other people too. Like anyone can connect with them. Yeah. But it's just been pure magic in terms of how my business has flourished in many different realms.
Amazing. And it takes a lot of courage because, it's a big shift. It's not like, just one day eating meat and then becoming a vegetarian.
Yeah.
It's a big shift, and it takes a lot of courage because the human wants to always seek approval. It wants to have approval. It wants to be accepted. And when we take those steps to literally reinvent and recreate ourselves, it all doesn't always mean that the people that are in our lives in that moment are going to stay. And so there's that as well.
Oh, there definitely is. In fact, I would say that probably 95% of the people that were in my life in Olympia no longer are part of this frequency. Yes. And it's okay. And I have changed with the different careers and locations. I've changed people, fairly regularly. As I have grown, people just fade away. And that is the natural part of evolution.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And accepting that as well, right? And going, you know what, it's okay. Because there was a part of me that knew that they weren't going to stick around. Yes. And that was okay. Like it was totally okay. Because, the beginning of this reincarnation, if you want to call it that, kind of coincided with the end of my 16-year relationship. And, the core group of friends of, 10 to 12 were there. And I knew that I was never going to win the friend pool when we split up.
Yes.
And until I really got down the road into this path a little more, it did bother me in the beginning. It did. There was some bitterness and resentment there for sure. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't. And then I just got to the place and I went, it's okay. It's okay. They're going to have their own journey. This one is mine, albeit completely different than the other identity or personality that I had created. And it's okay.
Yes, it is. And here from day one of being here on island, I have created a new tribe that really does resonate with new Lisa. And that's what talking about our environment and creating that sacred space, I only have people in my life, like really intentionally in my life, that have this kind of higher vibration, because that's what I need and want for myself. And so, my husband, he has a few friends that they're not going to be watching this show, so I can say anything I want. And I could anyway. But like, he's got some friends that I'm like, you have fun. You go hang out with them. You go to that party. I don't want to go. That's not, it's not going to be my happy place. I'd rather be home alone in my own energy and doing whatever I want to be doing rather than being with, just small talk and low vibe people.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's what we talked about earlier in attracting. Mm-hmm. We also attract people to us that is based on what Sadhguru would say our vasana, which is basically our smell, for lack of a better word, right? Because what we are emitting, we are going to attract.
Yes.
And so, I know a lot of people are like, how do I keep on attracting these people into my life that bring drama and trauma and negativity? And I'm like, let's do some work first, and then we'll talk about that again later, right? Because, it's how it works, right? What are you attracting? What are you creating? And, what are you creating with your thoughts, your energies, your actions?
Yeah. Well, that's, when I was writing the Sacred Soul Spaces book, that's why I really wanted to create a book that really taught people about the multi-dimensional effects of the environment. So it's science, it's spirituality, it's design, it's feng shui, but it's all like, you can be intentional in every aspect of your life. And same with my Sacred Soul Love book. That is like really, what are you creating within your own self? Because Sacred Soul Love truly is like getting back to your self-love, remembering your self-love. And from that place, then you can have an amazing life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you can fully accept the self and love the self, even though it's a created illusion, but accept all of it.
Yes.
Then you're at ease with yourself. You're at one with the self, and the self isn't a problem anymore, right? Or as much as a problem. I mean, I still get in my own way sometimes, for sure. But it's about, just being at one and doing things consciously rather than the subconscious reaction. Because the subconscious is just going to react like it did before, right? Unless we take a pause and think, okay, well, how do I actually really want to respond? Big difference between reaction and response. How do I want to respond when the reaction just happens, the road rage, what have you?
Yes, rewiring that brain, so important. And I know, so the plant medicine that you work with, that helps to rewire the brain.
Absolutely. Right?
Minds and the different modalities that I do really can help to rewire. And that's really what it's about. We are mutable. We are changeable. Our brains, our wiring is not stuck. So we really can have like amazing change and evolution.
100%. And then the magic can start to unfold, right? Yes. Aside from, working with ayahuasca and San Pedro, because the medicine and I work together in ceremony to help who's ever in the room. But from my own experience, is that you can only really, truly shift and change and know something through your own experience. Mm-hmm. I can sit here and talk all day long and it's not going to change anything. It might plant a few seeds. It might, spur on some sort of an exploration. So it's definitely serves a purpose. But to be able to have, tools, techniques, processes that will show the mind and show you over a short amount of time, usually, that these shifts and changes are possible, then becomes the motivation to continue to do them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for anyone watching or listening, try some different modalities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and explore and find one, because I think that too, that we're fickle,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're going to dig a hole and try to find some water and find a well, if you go out into your yard and you dig a hole for, 10 feet and go, there's no water here, I'm going to go dig a hole over there, you're going to have a yard full of holes and you're not going to be anywhere near water. And, I did, I was all over the place. I was like a sponge. I was, all sorts of different modalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I would read 6 books at a time. And I finally went, okay, enough. Right. And then obviously, at that time, the medicine and I had agreed to work together. And so there was that learning and that hole. And then along came Sadhguru. And so those are my holes. I know that those are my holes. I know there's water there. Because if I go digging around now at this point, in this juncture, I'm only going to get confused.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be a distraction. Right. So I think that, exploring different modalities, there is a great benefit to it. However, and I will say this out loud, if you've been exploring different modalities for 10 years, it's time to pick one or two.
Yes.
I'm just gonna,
I agree with you on that. Yeah. Different modalities are going to resonate with different people for whatever experiences they're needing to work on. And some people are like, yes, I'm ready for plant medicine. Let's do this. And other people are like, oh, I'm scared.
Find what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Just find something that works for you, because there's so much good stuff out there. But find what works for you, not what you might believe in necessarily, but what you can commit to doing and exploring that will work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be crazy, and you're just going to be jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping, and then you're going to go, oh, none of this makes sense, nothing works, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And that's okay too.
It is, because it's just but one costume that we're wearing.
Right.
This time and space.
Be willing to take the mask off. Right. You talked about masks a little bit earlier, and it's like we've developed this limited personality and identity because we think that, oh, well, I behave this way, I act this way, I think this way, I do those things. And, personality came from the word persona, which really was to act. Right. I mean, there's actors all over TV and movie, they don't just stick that one mask onto their face and say, well, this is it. But this is kind of what we've done. And so we've glued one particular mask onto the face, which unfortunately is incredibly limiting.
It really is. And it's funny that you say that, because my husband, he's like, we've been together for now 7.5 years. And he's like, I feel like I'm still getting to know you. And I said, yeah, me too. Because I'm ever changing. I'm not, again, I choose not to be stuck anymore. I choose to just evolve and change and be whoever I'm going to be in whatever moment I'm going to be in.
Yeah. Become a mystery to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. Just continue to evolve, explore, expand. 1 minute. It is more fun. You get to. It's a play. You get to play. Well, and I had this. And it was funny because it was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, when the phrase to be your authentic self was like everywhere. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, what is it? Right? And it bothered me because I'm like, you can be authentic moment to moment, but not confined to one identity.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the culmination of all of this that's authentic? I don't think so. I think it's about being authentic just right now, just in this moment, just being authentic in this moment and speaking whatever your truth is, rather than going, well, I grew up in that, I believe this and I don't believe that. And I think that is being a disservice to yourself. And that's, I think, where we get stuck. And I think that language really plays a role here in how we not only speak to ourselves, but in the way that we look at the definitions and the meanings of some of those words. From my experience, anyway.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I guess I do use that phrasing of like, I feel like I'm fully living my authentic life now. And what I mean by that is it is day to day, moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
Am I showing up in whatever vibration that I want to be living? Am I, and even if it's like a lower vibe, well, that's my authentic self in that moment, right?
Sure.
If I'm sad or I'm like, if something's going on health wise or whatever, okay, well, that's part of myself. That but I'm not, and I think for me, but the authenticity is I'm not pretending to be someone different than who I am. So like being this, fully galactic out there kind of being, but I'm very grounded too. Mm-hmm. Where when I was in those other businesses, those careers, I didn't feel fully authentic because I had to hide parts of myself to be accepted. Right. And so for me, that was not living authentically. But being it like, here, this is who I am. This is my experience. And I am continually evolving, growing, learning. We are still human here. And I am not perfect. I will never be perfect in this earth life. And that's okay. Perfectly imperfect.
I know, it'd be like, showing up to a party and you really don't want to be there, or you're in a particular space and then just pretending not to be, pretending to be all smiling. I mean, I spent a large part of my life doing that. And, I would get to the point sometimes where I would say to my partner, I'd say, Shannon, I said, I'm sorry, I know that we were supposed to go to this party tonight, but I am not fit for human consumption. I'm not going. I'm not going. And then there'd be a conversation and she got it, but, and then she'd go to the party and then, the friends would say, oh, what was going on? I'm like, I just didn't want to come.
Right.
What's wrong with that? It's got to be okay. Doesn't it have to be okay?
It does. And I think that we need, and that's part of having these conversations, is starting to normalize that in Western society. Because, I mean, and maybe it's pervasive in other parts of the world too, but I was groomed to be a people pleaser and to be codependent and all of that. And so now I'm able, like I mentioned earlier, if my husband wants to go to a party and I don't want to go, I'm like, you have fun, be safe. I'm going to stay here in my little cocoon, or I'm going to go do something else with a girlfriend or some other thing that's going to actually bring me joy, rather than being resentful that I'm at this party with these people that I don't really want to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's got to be okay. We have to give ourselves permission to say that it's okay.
Yeah.
Rather than to do what is expected.
Yes. And no is a complete sentence. We don't have to feel like we have to explain ourselves all the time either. Like, no.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, what was going on? None of your business. I just didn't want to go. I don't need to justify, explain, or defend myself. I can make my decisions. And so can you.
Yes.
Right? It's okay. Right? Without judgment. This is where we get tangled up. Expectations, judgment. A couple of the big places anyway.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
And that's, again, when I really started listening to my inner yeses and nos, I realized like how much I was taking on just because of those expectations of other people. Like whether it's going to a party or doing certain projects, taking on certain roles in my life. I was saying yes, feeling obligated, not because I truly wanted to be saying yes. And so now I've given myself permission to say no unapologetically.
Yeah, exactly. It's not happening or it is happening. It's all okay. Yes. Right? I mean, shit happens all the time and it's okay. I mean, for example, I've been working with a young man in my apprenticeship program for, almost 3 years now. So we know each other fairly well.
Yeah.
And we were going to have a session last night. And as I mentioned at the beginning, before we got on the recording, that it's been a whirlwind 2 weeks. And yesterday I was stupid tired. Like I was stupid tired. And I went, how am I going to show up? Right? Am I going to be able to come into this session with my client and offer him what, is for the best for everyone there? And I went, no. And so I sent him a message and I said, hey, can we reschedule? Because I'm just stupid tired. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Whereas before, I would have pushed a square peg through a round hole, right? Because, I have a session, this is, and there's a responsibility and there's an obligation, but there's also a responsibility and obligation to show up as best as I can as well. And I knew that was not going to happen yesterday. I just, and so it's okay. It's all okay.
And it's honoring ourselves and where we are. And it actually helps our mental health. It helps our physical health when we really do honor that.
For sure. And it also allows us to become more comfortable with being vulnerable and saying, hey, you know what, right now, this just isn't, it's not perfect. I know you don't think I'm perfect anyway, but it's just, it's not. And it's just, okay, it'll be better tomorrow. Right?
Yes.
It's all good.
Well, and I think ultimately that's where we will be shifting to as a society. It's just going to take a little more time for people to...
A little more time, a little grace and ease,
Yeah.
We can do these things with grace and ease. They don't have to be, guns blazing and whatnot. But, we're getting there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we'll just help each other along. Right.
You're there for your people and for my people, and that's all we can really do. Just show up and shine.
Yeah. Shine, and woo the divine.
Woo the divine. I might have to watch that.
Yeah. Just woo, whatever it looks like for you. Woo the divine. This has been absolutely amazing, Lisa. Thank you so much for showing up. So, let's, I'll obviously I'm going to put your link in the show notes for people to get in touch with you, but where do we find you? What do we do with you?
Okay. Lots of things you can do with me. And most of the stuff that I do is online. So I can work with people, multinational. So if you're interested in any kind of regression sessions, it's really interesting because my sessions now really aren't necessarily about past lives, and they're not really human lives. They're like different energies being something greater than this just earth life. But I've been connecting people with their galactic family and guides, their past loved ones, other things like that. My human design chart readings are amazing for really understanding who you were born to be in this specific earth life, so you can navigate it easier. And then if you're visiting Hawaii, come to the Big Island specifically, not Oahu, come to the island of Hawaii and come on one of the UFO tours or to my retreat. And so you can find me at drlisajthompson.com or mysticmanta.com. And then I'm also at BigIslandUFOtours.com.
Brilliant. Brilliant. We will include all of the links to be able to contact Lisa should you wish to go and watch some UFOs with her or any of her other fabulous work. Again, my dear, thank you so much for being on our podcast and sharing your fabulous self with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. See you next time on Creating Life Consciously.